The Unfiltered Human on the Fringe, Episode 5 Tempt. The quiet assassin of connection, superiority, judgment, emotional disconnection, and the subtle weapons of intellectual elitism. An excavation into the ways we distance ourselves from others to protect our wounded selves. The subtle poison of contempt. Contempt doesn't shout, it smirks. It rolls its eyes, crosses its arms, and pretends not to care. Unlike anger, which seeks justice, or shame, which seeks invisibility, contempt seeks elevation. It needs someone to be beneath you so that you can feel above. But this elevation comes at a cost. The slow erosion of connection, humility, and our capacity for human intimacy. In this episode, we explore the anatomy of contempt, where it begins, how it disguises itself as intellect, wit, or moral clarity, and why it thrives in cultures built on hierarchy and performance. We ask, what is contempt defending? And what happens when we put it down? Seeds of contempt, childhood, and early judgments, reflection. In childhood, I remember a teacher singling me out as disruptive when I wasn't. I don't recall the exact words, but I remember the feeling, humiliation, judgment, rejection. That energy still lingers in my body. It was one of the few negative notes in my school record, and it deeply affected my sense of self. I internalized their disapproval. I learned that disliking someone could be institutionalized, made official. I also grew up hearing language that modeled contempt. Classism, racism, and homophobia echoed in casual remarks. Even when I didn't agree, I sometimes mimicked those patterns. I didn't understand why, but something in me recognized the weight of that influence. It didn't feel like mine, yet I carried it. Psychological insight. Contempt is often learned before it's understood. It becomes a posture, inherited from authority figures and cultural scripts. According to developmental psychology, children model emotional patterns they observe, especially when those patterns come from people they rely on for safety. Contempt begins when judgment feels safer than empathy. Our self-reflection. Can you remember when you first felt better than or less than someone else? What story did it create about your place in the world? Asks of superiority, contempt as emotional armor, reflection. I've caught myself judging others when I felt vulnerable, especially online. Not to feel powerful, but perhaps to feel less exposed. I try to respond with insight and experience, but sometimes there's an edge. Behind that, I know there's a fear of not being heard, of not being valued. Contempt is rarely about the other person. It's about the distance we create when closeness feels too risky. At times, I felt compelled to appear knowledgeable, moral, or emotionally composed. Not out of arrogance, but out of fear that I'd be dismissed. That emotional honesty wouldn't be enough. But I'm learning the real strength isn't in looking above, but in standing beside. Emotional insight. Contempt often disguises vulnerability. According to Brené Brown, it thrives in cultures that punish uncertainty and emotion. When empathy is unsafe, we reach for superiority. Every judgment hides a deeper fear. Self-reflection. What insecurity might be hiding behind your moments of judgment? Cultural and class contempt. Divides that silence, reflection. I remember being called common by a wealthy relative when I was just 12. It hit me hard. I wasn't rude or unrefined, I was kind, respectful. But their words cut deep. Later in life, a partner criticized my clothes and values, implying I wasn't good enough. That pattern of being diminished by class, status, or taste is replayed again and again. At times, I internalized those beliefs, questioning my worth. But I've also seen this behavior in other performative status games that mean nothing beneath the surface. I chased wealth and titles once, but it cost me authenticity. I stepped away. I wanted peace, not power. Cultural insight. Pierre Bourdieu's theory of cultural capital shows how education, taste, and class can become weapons of exclusion. Contempt reinforces those boundaries not to protect truth, but to maintain power. Contempt often reveals what a culture worships and fears. Self-reflection. When have you felt silenced, excluded, or diminished by someone else's sense of superiority? Narcissism, elitism, and the desire to be untouchable. Reflection. I've witnessed contempt used as a weapon to avoid intimacy, people who mock or belittle rather than connect. I am guilty of being immature and doing it myself. One person told me I was crazy because I held them accountable. They gaslit me, denied my experiences, and weaponized my vulnerability. When I asked for support, they vanished. That experience taught me that some people wear contempt like armor to avoid seeing themselves. I've worn that armor too. I've used coldness and judgment to hide pain I didn't yet know how to express. But over time, I've come to recognize that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's clarity, theoretical insight. Contempt is often linked to narcissistic traits, not as a pathology, but as a defense. Elitism isn't confidence, it's distance. True self-esteem doesn't need to stand above only within oneself. The need to feel untouchable often reveals how deeply we've been hurt. Self-reflection. What are you protecting when you push others away? Intimacy and contempt, the death of connection, reflection, sarcasm, eye rolls, passive judgment. I've done them all and I've been on the receiving end. It's destructive. It kills the connection. I've lost friendships because of emotional immaturity on both sides. Sometimes it's not about who's right, it's about who's willing to stop performing and start listening. In emotionally heated moments, I now choose silence over provocation. Not because I don't care, but because I care too much to destroy something sacred with ego. Connection demands humility, and I've learned to offer it even when it hurts. Relationship insight. Contempt is one of the strongest predictors of relationship failure. According to John Gottman, it creates a toxic emotional climate where neither party feels seen or safe. Contempt is what we reach for when honesty feels too risky. Self-reflection. When was the last time contempt replaced honesty in a close relationship? What did it cost? When you are the target, surviving contempt, reflection. I've received contempt from every direction, parents, partners, teachers, and courts. It used to crush me. I'd shrink, overperform, or spiral into cynicism. But over time I built emotional resilience. I realized that contempt says more about the one projecting than the one receiving. I stopped trying to prove my worth and started protecting my peace. Resilience insight. Surviving contempt means learning how not to internalize it. Trauma-informed therapy shows that boundaries, validation, and embodied self-worth are key to healing from chronic invalidation. When you stop absorbing contempt, it loses its power. Self-reflection. Who taught you that you were less than? And what have you done to unlearn it? Rehumanizing the other, healing contempt with curiosity, reflection. These days I try to lead with curiosity. I ask, what don't I know about this person, instead of assuming? But I still catch myself. Judgment is quick. Curiosity takes effort. The more grounded I am emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, the more space I have to connect, even when I disagree. When I truly listen to someone's story, my contempt softens. We've all said and done things we regret. We're all carrying unseen wounds. Rehumanizing others doesn't mean excusing harm. It means refusing to become the thing we hate. Philosophical insight. Contempt dehumanizes. Curiosity rehumanizes. Martin Buber spoke of the I-thou relationship, where we meet others as sacred, not as objects. Contempt turns thou into it. Connection begins when you see the soul behind the mask. Self-reflection. What helps you drop your guard and meet others with curiosity, not comparison? Beneath the judgment. Thank you for listening to episode 5 of the Unfiltered Human on the Fringe. In this chapter of our shadow emotion arc, we peeled back the layers of contempt, the hidden smirk of superiority, the quiet killer of intimacy. We explored where it starts, in childhood judgments, class divides, and emotional wounds, and how it shows up in the everyday moments we overlook. But we also uncovered its antidotes, vulnerability, humility, and curiosity. Contempt can be unlearned. Connection can be rebuilt. As always, these reflections aren't just about exposing the shadow. They're about reclaiming the light underneath. Keep asking the hard questions. Keep holding space for nuance. Until next time, stay thoughtful, stay courageous, and stay human. James Miller. If you found value in today's episode, you may also be interested in my broader project, The Inversiverse, a series exploring the hidden architecture of perception, identity, control, and consciousness. Across 20 episodes, The Inversiverse dissects indoctrination, language, media manipulation, dark psychology, belief systems, and the evolution of self in the digital age. You can find all episodes of The Inversiverse on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and Substack by searching this place called Earth. These ideas aren't shared to convince you, but to invite you to think, feel, and perceive more consciously in a world designed to keep you distracted. Overview of the Inversiverse, a journey through the mirrors of mind, culture, and control. Episodes 1 to 3 introduce foundational ideas around indoctrination, perception, and manipulation. Episode 4 explores how language, symbols, and cultural norms are used to shape thought. Episode 5 investigates control systems, media narratives, and the illusion of choice. Episodes 6 to 7 dives into collective belief structures and the psychology of mass behavior. Episode 8 focuses on marketing, control theory, game theory, and critical thinking. Episode 9 covers love, relationships, human mating, gender dynamics, and red-blue pill ideologies. Episode 10 unpacks dark psychology, the occult, Satanism, and the dark triad personality types. Episode 11 the simulated self examines identity, ego, and the rise of post-human consciousness. Episode 12 the spell of the mind inquires into language, illusion, and physiology of thought. Episode 13 conscious seduction journeys through persuasion, propaganda, and the unseen forces of the mind. Episode 14 the myth of sanity sheds light on madness, genius, and the edge of perception. Episode 15 the algorithmic mind probes influence, identity, and invisible architects. Episode 16 the noise of knowing reveals overload, obsession, and the age of infinite information. Episode 17 Belief Machines delves further into language, desire, and the engine of reality. Episode 18 Submerged Signals examines how the unseen shapes the self. Episode 19 The Alchemy Within traces food, frequency, and the forgotten intelligence of the body. Episode 20 Encoded Flesh scrutinizes and opens up to the forgotten language of the body, DNA, and biological consciousness.